right. So, well, look, let me, I'll kick off. So my name's Lisa Folkes. I'm the Director of Employment at Social Ventures Australia. I can see we've still got people coming through, but I want to kick off the webinar by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which I am coming to you from, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I want to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and also to any Indigenous people who are joining us today, and to the traditional owners of the lands across Australia from which we join this meeting. So thank you all for coming along to this webinar to talk about the review platform and to talk about an interesting and exciting new adaptation of that platform for those of you who haven't seen it before. But I want to I'll introduce my colleague Jess Graham-Franklin to take you through the platform in just a second. But I just thought I'd just say a couple of words about why SVA developed this platform, and I guess to put a bit of context around what it's for and why we think it's important to use it. So as many of you would know, Social Ventures Australia very committed to evidence-based practice. And a couple of years ago, we received, you'll have to excuse the planes going over. It's a problem at the end of lockdown is the planes come back, and now, my comments will be punctuated by plane noise. But we looked at the evidence of what worked in youth employment programs. And I guess what you would say about that evidence is that there are a lot of youth programs aimed at getting people into employment that really don't do very much at all. But what you can say about what's important in employment programs from young people is that they are characterised by being highly tailored to the young people who are in those programs and to the labour markets. They're not just about one intervention, one thing, they're about lots of things. And what the analysis of the evidence tells us is that it's critically important to have a feedback loop. So good employment programs for young people include a mechanism for understanding whether young people got the assistance they needed, what happened to them after the program, and whether it actually met their needs. So that feedback loop is something that we sought to address through the review platform, because we know how resource intensive it is for not-for-profit organisations to try to follow up that feedback. So Jess will take you through the platform and she will show you how we've sought to create a platform that makes it really easy for you to find out the things that you need to know to make sure that your practice is hitting the mark and to improve your outcomes for the young people who you were seeking to work with. The other thing I would say about the review platform is that it recognises one of the fundamental features of the labour market that we're in, which is one in which many young people, and in fact, given very low unemployment rates at the moment, many young people are finding work, but they're finding work that is not meeting their needs. So I was just looking at the data. There are 460,000 young people who are either unemployed or underemployed in Australia at the moment, more young women than men, and more underemployed than unemployed, particularly young women. So it's not just about getting a job, it's about the type of job that young people are getting and whether it meets their needs. So the review platform, again, seeks to understand that information, give you a mechanism for finding out that information from young people you work with quickly and easily. So so the webinar will take you through the platform. Jess will show it to you. We'll hear from Trent Miller, who has been using the platform in his organisation, as well as doing a bit of a stint with us here at SVA to make sure that it was meeting providers' needs. I'm going to encourage you to ask questions through the webinar. I'll be monitoring them in the chat function, and please feel free as you're seeing the demonstration to ask any questions that arise. And finally, before I hand over to Jess, I want to acknowledge the really important contribution of our funders. You'll see them on the slide, but particularly City Foundation, Lord Mayor's Charitable Foundation, Jack Brockhoff Foundation, and individual funders that have enabled us to create a platform for and with the sector. Okay, so I'll hand over to Jess, and as I said, please ask any questions in the platform, and well, let's go.
Thanks so much, Lisa, and hi everyone, welcome. Lots of familiar faces on the screen, but some I haven't met. My name is Jess, and I am the project lead for review here at Social Ventures Australia. I'm just going to share my screen and I'll take you through basically an introduction to the review platform. Some of you are really familiar with it, some of you may not know it very well at all, so I just thought it would be a really good starting point to go through sort of the foundations that exist, because we do have some really strong existing foundations and it's important to understand those first. As Lisa said, we'll then get to have a bit of a chat with Trent Miller from Youth Projects, who have been using the platform really since its inception. We will then go through the newest feature, which we're really excited to launch today, and a live demonstration of that. And then I hope we can open up the floor and have a bit more of an interactive conversation. As Lisa said, she'll be monitoring the comments box as we go. If you've got questions, please pop them in there, or even don't hesitate to just take yourself off mute. We're really hoping to make this as interactive as possible, rather than just a one-way download of information. So I'll kind of jump in. Lisa's covered some of this already, but just to give you a bit of a background about the why behind the platform. Just give me one sec while I get this all set up. Okay, so as Lisa said, we know that across Australia there are hundreds of organisations that are delivering really innovative and exciting programs that support young people into employment. Some of you are here today, which is awesome. And for you and for other social organisations doing this work, it's really important to be able to demonstrate the value that your programs are having for young people. Obviously, that's important for funders and for other stakeholders, but more than anything, it's important for you as providers to really understand whether you're achieving what you've set out to, and so that you can learn from what you're doing. And there goes another plane. But as you know, and as Lisa called out, measuring impact can be tough. It can be really time and resource intensive. And so 18 months ago, just over 18 months ago, Social Ventures Australia launched the review platform. It's a free online outcomes measurement tool that has been specifically designed for youth employment providers or organisations that deliver employment programs for young people aged 15 to 24. So that includes jobs-focused social enterprises, as well as education, training and employment services, delivering programs or projects for young people where employment is the goal. So what is the review platform? Well, firstly, it's a free online digital survey tool. It comprises 3 ready-to-use participant surveys that give providers the opportunity to hear directly from the young people that they're supporting at different points in time. All of the data that is collected via the surveys and that's stored on the review platform is securely hosted here in Australia, and it's owned exclusively by the organisations using the tools. And all of the survey responses are de-identified in order to protect the privacy and confidentiality of participants. But review is more than a survey tool. It's also a data analysis tool. So the review platform automatically collates the feedback collected by the surveys and presents it into dynamic charts and tables. For providers, that simplifies analysis and allows them to view results at both the program and organisational level. Data can be filtered by specific date ranges and can be easily exported. So providers can create bespoke charts and also integrate data with other data sources. Outcomes measurement practice is, above all, a cycle of continuous improvement, and as Lisa said. So ultimately, the review platform is a tool that enables providers to learn from the feedback that young people are providing and to use data to drive decision-making and continuous improvement. Because programs, as Lisa also said, that are highly responsive to participants are the ones that work best. How does the platform actually work? The diagram here provides a quick overview, and I'll show you a little bit more of this when we go into the live demo. The items in blue are the components that are used by program staff, and then the items in purple indicate the components that are completed by young people or participants in a program. So the first step for anyone using the platform is to set up or create a program. This includes adding program information, such as the program name and dates, any notes about the program that they want to capture. This is also where you add participant information, so people's name, email address, and phone number. And the reason that we ask for that information is that it enables the surveys to be distributed via those methods. This is also where surveys can be scheduled so that they can be distributed to participants automatically at specific points in time that are relevant for the program. So each program provider determines when those surveys are actually sent. Survey 1 is intended as a baseline, so that's usually information that is collected sort of at the beginning of a program. Survey 2 is towards the end of a program, and then Survey 3 is a follow-up once young people have moved on from the program. And these different points in time allow providers to track the change that occurs for participants as a result of participation in the program. And then, of course, once the program has been set up, the next step is to send the surveys out. So as I said, survey distribution is automated from within the platform in order to save providers time, because we know that's one of the biggest challenges. They can be sent via email and SMS, but they can also be accessed from within the platform itself. So we know that sometimes young people are often changing their phone numbers, or they might not have access to email. So we've created a kiosk method that allows the surveys to be accessed from within the platform. The platform allows you to track surveys by giving instant visibility over who has completed them, who hasn't, and allows you to resend survey links to anyone that needs to be followed up with. And then, of course, as feedback starts being collected for each survey, the review platform automatically collates it into charts and tables for analysis and response. Providers can and really should engage with results throughout this data collection process. So not just at the end of a program or once survey 3 has been distributed. Feedback should be reviewed throughout the whole data collection period, as it provides an opportunity to respond to what the data is telling you in a timely manner. The indicators that are measured by the review platform are evidence informed. So they're based on research and are based on some existing survey instruments, including the Job Seeker Classification Instrument and the HILDA survey. The surveys themselves were co-designed and tested with a group of youth employment providers so that they really meet the needs of the sector and the young people being surveyed. And since launching, they've been implemented with over 1,200 young people across Australia. The indicators can be grouped into 3 categories. So the first is demographic information, because as any provider knows, first and foremost, it's important to know who you are working for. Survey 1 collects demographic information such as age, gender, disability, cultural background, as well as some more sort of employment-specific information, such as a young person's distance from the labour market or how long they've been unemployed, and some of the barriers that might be making it difficult for them to find work. This information is collected at the beginning of a program so that it can provide ideas about how to tailor activities or program content to best suit the needs of a specific group of individuals. The second group of indicators relate to program effectiveness. Evidence points us to a number of features or characteristics of a program that are likely to produce the best outcomes for young people. Effects vary widely between programs of the same type, and so how a program is delivered is critical. The review platform enables you to track how well a program is performing against these features based on feedback directly from participants. It's captured at the end of a program so that you can see what has worked well and where there might be opportunities to do things differently based on, again, what young people are telling you. And that gives you an opportunity to uncover things that you may not already know. And then last, but certainly not least, the review platform and surveys use indicators that measure what a program is achieving. These are a set of shared outcomes that are evidence-based and developed alongside providers for being the most relevant to understanding the impact of youth employment programs. These are outcomes that go beyond just job numbers, and as Lisa said, start to really look at job quality and career pathways, because for young people, it's not just unemployment that's an issue, but really looking at underemployment. At the moment, we're seeing a 13-year low in unemployment numbers for young people, but we know that they're still struggling to find work. And that struggle exists even more so for young people who may have complex, often multiple barriers to work. And then on top of that, we know that job quality isn't in line with what young people want or need, especially in terms of the hours of work they are receiving or the type of job security that they're being afforded. And so the review platform allows providers to track and measure exactly that. Outcome indicators include a young person's satisfaction with the job they're in, the hours they work, their job stability, whether or not the job uses their skill. The surveys also look at indicators that measure a young person's perceived employability. So we look at things such as career direction, attitude to work, and job networks. As I said, these surveys have been now implemented with over 1,200 young people across Australia and used to measure the impact of over 120 youth employment programs. We work really closely with the organisations that are implementing the tools. As I said, they're ranging from social enterprises to not-for-profits of different sizes and employment and training providers. The organisations that are using the platform are reporting incredible benefits. One has told, we're hearing things like significant time and financial savings, with one user stating that they've likely saved in the order of $10,000 from using the review platform, which is a free tool. We've had other organisations tell us that they've had successes in funding applications and accreditations, in part due to the meaningful and credible data that they're collecting. Organisations are reporting that they're able to make data-driven improvements to program content and delivery to appropriately suit the evolving needs of their participants. And we've been told that it's given them more efficient evaluation methods and improved their capacity to gather and analyse data, which is really what it's all about. That's a very quick introduction to the review platform. I'm going to leave it there before I do jump into our next session, which is a Q&A with Trent Miller from Youth Projects. Does anyone have any questions about any of the content that I've covered so far? Feel free to come off mute if you do, or enter it into the comment box. Otherwise, we'll jump on ahead. Okay, awesome. So what I would like to do now is introduce Trent Miller. As I said, Trent is from Youth Projects. Youth Projects are one of the first organisations. They've been using the platform really since it launched over 18 months ago. Trent is the head of major projects and transformation, and is in the very unique position, as Lisa alluded to at the beginning, to have also worked as the lead of the review project for 12 months here at SVA. So he brings a really unique perspective to the table. Welcome, Trent.
Thanks, Jess. Do you want to take off screen share maybe?
Oh, thank you. Yes, I will. I was like, how do I see everybody? So thank you.
No worries. Yeah. Sorry about the job title. It's a bit of a mouthful.
No, did I get it right?
You got it right.
Okay. So what we might do is just start off with maybe you telling us a little bit about youth projects and the programs that use the review platform.
Yeah, for sure. So Youth Projects, we're a registered charity based in Melbourne. Our organisation offers frontline support to young people and individuals experiencing disadvantage. I think, like a lot of community services based organisations, they can be quite complex in structure. The best way to think about ours is that we're divided into two portfolios, so one being community health and the other, a lot more relevant for today's discussion, our employment, training and social enterprise. Yeah, look, in terms of the review platform, as Jess mentioned, we kind of were one of the first organisations to implement it, but ultimately it's expanded to be across a lot of our different employment programs, essentially where we're looking for where employment is the main end goal. We initially rolled out the review platform with our work integrated social enterprise, the Little Social. So the Little Social is made up of 3 cafes across Melbourne. When we first started, it was actually only 1 cafe, but we've had some exciting expansion over the recent years. But our main site, or our first site that was developed, was in Hosier Lane in Melbourne. So if you're ever in town, I would encourage anyone to grab a coffee or a toastie and go and see some amazing artwork that is on Hosier Lane. And the other one is at the Alfred Hospital, and then there's a third at a busy train station in the northeast of Melbourne. I think I guess like reflecting back to around 18 months ago, in the beginning, we probably didn't fully understand our purpose behind using review. I guess from an organisation perspective, what we did know is that we needed to start collecting more data and information to actually better understand our programs, and that this needed to come directly from young people. Once we started collecting our survey responses from our program participants, we realised, I guess, the power of it and that it could be used across other programs. We, I guess, came to the conclusion that Jess had mentioned, that actually asking our program participants really started to inform what future program improvements looks like. So from our social enterprise, we moved into one of our federally funded contracts, which is employability skills training. For anyone who doesn't know, it's kind of a 3-week pre-employment training program that's quite intensive. Our customer referrals generally come from job active providers. So we're essentially getting program participants who have got no background information on it. It's really hard to develop that rapport quickly. So the review platform's been really powerful in collecting these insights on a quick basis. So then we can make, we can understand our cohort to make sure that we're catering to their needs from there. After rolling out to employability skills training, we've recently, probably over the last 9 months, started to integrate it into our transition to work program. So that services 16 to 25-year-olds with a focus on employment, but we don't use it for the whole transition to work caseload. We use it for, I guess, programs within programs. So most recently we started, or we designed a program with a mid-tier construction organisation who was developing a community hub. So this was a pilot program. So we didn't have any, I guess, systems set up around how to actually capture and collect data about that program. So review was really handy to be able to, I guess, like plug and play and make sure that we're collecting information that's really relevant to youth employment programs.
Trent, I think what I love about what you've just said is it really shows sort of the diversity of the platform. You know, this is a tool that can be used by, you know, discrete projects where there are fixed start and end dates, such as the employability skills training that youth projects deliver, but then it can also be used by you know, bigger programs, government funded programs, and social enterprises that perhaps don't have those fixed dates and that have more of a kind of rolling intake for young people. And we've seen it work effectively across those different programs. So I really appreciate you kind of taking everybody through that. One of the things that we're really excited to talk about today, and I've seen a question just come through from Kate, which I hope to answer in a minute, is this new feature that we're launching, which will allow organisations using the review platform for the first time to create their own survey questions in addition to the existing review surveys. And we're excited about this because it's something youth employment providers have been telling us they want for some time. And we, as much as anybody else, want to learn from what we're doing and be responsive to the needs of our users. So what I might ask you, Trent, to talk to is a little bit about that and what you're excited about in terms of that feature and how you see it being of value for youth projects.
Yeah, exactly. I think like the biggest thing for us is what I was just kind of mentioning before, you know, partnering with a mid-tier construction organisation. Like the review surveys are a great base, but the new feature will allow us to take that next step further so we can start digging into more technical skills that young people are gathering, you know, things like how comfortable are they using hand tools, power tools, those sorts of things, and really get a base level from when they're entering the program, because sometimes we're dealing with a young person who's never worked, you know, done maybe a little bit of woodwork in school sort of thing and a little bit of metal work, but their confidence in their own skills is quite low. So being able to capture that information at a first survey and then seeing the improvements they make over time will be really powerful for us, and will also help us design around the program design as to what we need to deliver more of or what we need to deliver less of. So we feel like the review stuff has a great base, but yeah, we want to take it the next step further for our organisation, which is really catering into those bespoke programs that we're trying to design for young people.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Trent. I'll just pause there before. This is a really good segue for me to kind of jump online and actually show you the platform live and take you through this new feature so that you can see how it works. But before I do that, is there any kind of quick questions that anybody might have for Trent? Please feel free again to take off your mute if you're keen to voice your question. Otherwise, I'll jump through and hopefully start to answer some of the questions that are coming through the comments box through the session.
Yeah, and if anyone has any questions later down the track, happy to be contacted after around how youth projects use the platform.
Awesome. And yeah, I think that's also a really lovely part of the platform, is that we've started to create this really kind of nice network of organizations that are using the tools that can share and learn from each other. So if ever there's a user who says, I'm really keen to understand how another social enterprise is using it, with permission, of course, we really love acting as that facilitator or conduit that can put organizations in touch with one another so you can learn from what each other are doing. And I think what we'll find with this new feature is that organizations might be using it in a similar way, and we can start to then kind of understand that and see if there are other kind of key components that are common across the board. Enough of that ramble. I will share my screen and I'll take you onto the platform. So this is a live version of the platform, although I'm using dummy data here today. Let me just see if I can get this up and working. Is that all good, George? Yeah, okay, I'm getting a thumbs up. Okay, so as I said, sort of in my introduction, the first thing that any user will do when they come onto the review platform is to create a new program. And that's a really quick sort of 3-step process. And there's really the only bit of manual data entry that is required from program staff. So the first step is to include some program information, such as the program name, the start and end date of a program, if they are fixed start and end dates. If they're not, then we work with organizations to work out what those start and end dates might look like based on sort of their program flows. Program notes, so this is where you can capture any information. Perhaps you're targeting a specific cohort, or there's information that you'd like to capture here and track. And then it enables you to track whether the program delivers activities related to employability skills and technical skills. As Trent alluded to, those are different across every program, and so aren't necessarily things that are being measured using the common indicators within the review surveys. The next step is where you add program participants. Now, we've tried to make this as quick and easy as possible. So to do that, you can import a CSV file, and that will import your participants in just a few steps. Participants can also be added manually if that's not a function that is easy or useful for you to use. The third step is where you schedule the surveys. So you set start and end dates for each of the surveys. That's the length of time that that survey is open and young people can respond. And usually that will be based off the program dates, but you can change it based on what's going to be most relevant for your program delivery. So you can see here, survey 1 starts when the program opens to collect that baseline information. Survey 2 opens a week before the program ends so that you can start to capture that end of program feedback. And then survey 3 is set for 3 months after a program ends to capture that follow-up feedback from young people. But as I said, these can be tailored and changed based on what works best for you. Once you've entered that information, you just create the program, and this is where you then have the option to add customized survey questions. To add customized survey questions is really straightforward. You can add as many questions as you like simply by clicking add new row. What I would sort of just say here is that for any providers using the tool, we would encourage you to keep the question to those that are sort of most relevant for your program and your participants. Obviously, the longer surveys get, the more kind of unlikely it is that young people are going to get to the end of them, but this is up to you. You've got the first column here, which is where you really enter your question. I'm going to just put in something really simple here just to demonstrate how it works. The second column is really important here because it's where you set the question type. Now, these are limited at the moment to 4 different types of questions, and this speaks a little bit to your question earlier, Kate, about qualitative data. So the review surveys capture both quantitative data and also qualitative data. The existing surveys have 1 question that is open-ended at the end of each survey, which basically asks, is there anything else that you would like to tell us? This new feature allows you to add more open-ended questions to capture more qualitative data that is specifically useful for your program. So you can ask short or long text questions. The short ones basically limit a response to about a sentence, and the long text questions limit responses to about a paragraph. You've then got the yes or no question type, which, as the name suggests, basically asks young people to respond in one of 2 ways, either yes or no. And then we've got the strongly disagree to strongly agree question type. That's a 7-point sliding scale or Likert scale. And the reason that we've included that is it's similar to the questions that are asked elsewhere in the review survey. So we've got that consistency. So here you choose your question type. I'm going to choose yes or no. And then you have the option to choose whether you would like that question to be mandatory or required for young people to respond to. It might be asking personal information, in which case you might leave it empty and keep it as a voluntary question. And then you can choose which surveys you would like that question to appear in. So for this one, do you have a driver's license? I'm going to ask that question at the beginning of the program and also at the end of the program to see if the program has supported young people to get their driver's licenses. And that's pretty much it. You can, as I say, add more questions. You can reorder questions using the reorder icon in the first column here. So if you have a specific flow that you would like to have for those survey questions, and of course you can delete questions if you decide that they're not relevant. Once you've created your questions, you just hit save and it will update, as you can see by the confirmation here in the top right-hand corner. Once you have created your questions, it's basically time to distribute your surveys and collect your feedback. For every program, you basically have 5 or 6 key pages. So you've got the program overview, which I'm on now. This gives you the information basically that you added at program setup. You've got a page for each of the surveys, which is where you can start to track distribution in more detail. You can see here the survey links. So if anybody needs to access the surveys from within the platform itself, this is where you would do that. And then most importantly, this is where you access your results. As I said, well, this is empty because we've got no survey responses. Let me just jump onto another one, which gives you an idea here of what those results look like. As I said, they're grouped into 3 kind of key groupings of indicators. You've got your program outcomes, you've got your participant or demographic information, you've got the program features, and then if you've entered custom questions, you will have a fourth tab here, which gives you the results for those. Lisa, you've come on off mute. Do you have a question that you want to jump in with?
Yeah, look, I've got a question here from Stephen about adding extra surveys, and I'm pretty sure, Stephen, you mean surveys rather than questions. So can we add a survey 4, 5 and 6? We've got a couple of other questions actually, but I'll just start with that one.
So at the moment, no, you can't, Stephen. We do have those fixed surveys as kind of 1, 2 and 3. For some organisations who, for example, run programs that are open-ended, the way that we manage that is to implement surveys sort of within a specified period of time. So for example, you might have a program that has a rolling intake. Average period of time that a young person stays in that program is 6 to 9 to 12 months. What we might do is actually break that program down into 12-week chunks. And then for each 12-week period, you would be able to implement all 3 surveys. So we kind of work with organizations to set survey dates based on what's going to actually make the most sense for their delivery. But at the moment, we only have those 3.
Another question, 2 other questions. So one was, can you choose to not use the standard questions? And it's from not a youth employment service provider. I mean, I can answer that quickly. This is really designed for a specific purpose, which is to track employment programs and their effectiveness. So it's not going to work if your primary purpose does not include employment. It's really directed at that. And we've also got a question from Holly about participants' emails and mobile numbers being able to be imported in bulk from an Excel. Yes, they can, and there's actually a template there that you can use, or you can, as long as you can upload an Excel spreadsheet, a CSV that has those.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. Was that all of the questions for now?
The other one was around response rates to surveys, which I think is a really interesting question and also a huge challenge for all providers trying to get survey results. Maybe Trent might want to chime in on that one as well. What sort of response rates are got, and then how does that work?
Yeah, for sure. Look, I'd be lying if I gave an accurate figure on this, but I think what's really important and where programs have done well to get a lot of response rates is when they really explain to a young person why they're collecting that data. And I think really putting at the fore of the reasoning for that is to explain to them that we're using their feedback to actually make improvement for people like that, not only in that program, but for future programs, and they're all kind of working together. I feel when that isn't done as well, there's maybe a good response rate for the first survey, but it really drops off at that second survey. And if you're not capturing both, it's really hard to do much with that information. So if you set it up really well from the start, I'd be pretty confident to say in ours, we would get around an 80% response rate for surveys 1 and 2, as long as a young person understands why they're completing the surveys.
Thank you, Trent. Yeah, definitely helpful to hear direct from a user's mouth. And I know we've got some other users in the room. Lawson and Pat, I can see, are here from Dismantle. Hi, guys. And in fact, Lawson and I were talking about this yesterday. You definitely see stronger response rates, I would say, in those first 2 surveys. And then, of course, once young people leave a program, it does make things a little bit harder. But if you set up in the foreground, why it's so important that you're collecting that information and the fact that they will be getting a survey after a period of time, it can help to increase that. We are kind of running low on time. We've got sort of 5 more minutes left of the session. Are there any other questions that anyone would like to ask? Please, again, feel free to come off mute, pop your video on, have a bit of a chat with us. Otherwise, the alternative is I can use some of this time to just show you what those results look like on the actual dashboard of the platform. Any preferences?
I had a quick question, Jess. We love referring to review for outcomes for evidencing our commitment to impact measurement, especially with new partnerships or grants and tenders that we go for. I'm just wondering if SVA has plans in the pipeline for, bringing attention to review for outcomes more mainstream, rather than just within this closed network of awesome social enterprises, and just keen to hear that so that we can be referencing it, much more easily in our communications.
That's a good question. Yeah, look, we'd love to. So we've certainly talked about how we might do that. We're a little bit resource constrained at the moment. I'm only working part-time. I've just returned from parental leave. But yeah, absolutely, we would love to. And I think there's lots of opportunities. We've just actually brought on a user of the platform who is using it with a program that's not specifically youth focused. So although it has been specifically designed for programs where young people are the participants, we've seen a lot of organizations who've said, hey, there's actually a wider application here for the platform. So there's something that I think that we can explore. And then of course through SVA's wider work. So we have, different elements of our organization. We've got a consulting arm who is able to use it with their clients. And then of course, once we've got more data, there's an opportunity to use it to start to influence policy and advocacy work as well. And we have used it in some of our policy submissions thus far, but we're not yet at the point where we've got the strength of data, and that's just going to come from time. It's really just a matter of a volume of providers using the platform and the length of time to really see that data sample build to the point where we can use it to influence and inform policy.
There's also a question about, sorry, Pat. Yep. There's also a question about privacy and protection of information. And particularly, I think specifically, Holly, you're interested in protection of each young person's information. So that obviously the survey results, as Jess said, even we can't see how they're linked to individuals. So once they've entered the survey, then that's absolutely locked. But in terms of accessing young people's own personal contact information, Jess, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So sorry, I missed that question, Holly. So as I said, all of the data is stored securely here in Australia. So that's kind of one of the big things about data security, is we wanted to make sure that it was all hosted in Australia. In terms of the privacy and confidentiality for young people, yes, their basic information is captured within the platform. So their name, their email address, and their phone number. That's input by providers who would already have access to that information, and it's not visible to anybody else outside of their organization. So the way that it works is an organization is set up with an account. They have an organization administrator, and that person is then able to add members within their organization, but only people that have login details and obviously passwords for the platform can access their organization's data. So no organization can see another organization's information, and SVA is unable to see any organization's information. So we can export the raw data, but we cannot see who that organization belongs to or who the participants are within that program. So all of that information is very, very securely protected to the program providers themselves, and they own all of that. No worries. Thank you very much. We've just hit time, so we might have to leave it there. I just want to say thank you so much to everybody who has turned up today. As I said, I've just returned from parental leave. I was a little bit nervous about doing this webinar, having been off for so long. I felt a little bit rusty, but you all made it more than easy and have just been so welcoming, and it's been such a joy to share the platform with you. For any organisations that are interested in learning more, or if you have questions that perhaps weren't answered today, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm happy to provide demonstrations. Our goal is to get as many organisations using this platform and getting value out of it. So we're here to work with you on that. Thank you both and all so much. Thank you to Lisa, George, my team, and all of our funders. To Trent, thank you so much for joining. We miss you at SVA, and all the best in your new role at Youth Projects. And have a great day, everybody. Bye.